Thanks very much. Thanks, Hugo. So we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity today. Obviously, as most of you know, it's a very hot area for Israeli companies and lots of fantastic technology coming out in this particular space. So when we talk about protecting against cybersecurity threats, it's important to, first of all, define what we consider to be an advanced attack. And there's lots of different companies protecting against these different types of threats, and lots of potential attackers who are trying to cause damage to companies and access all of your data. So if we look around, what we're focusing on is around advanced persistent threats. And this is the really nasty stuff that very sophisticated attackers are going to spend loads of money and energy and effort to try and steal from your organizations, whether this be sophisticated targeted attacks, trying to really get in and access customer data, financial information to really cause damage. Now, if you look at an attacker versus a defender, and it wouldn't be right without mentioning some type of football analogy today, we look at an attacker. Whatever an attacker does, they can spend as much money as they want, and they only have to succeed once to be able to cause damage. Think about a goalkeeper, a defender. They only have to get it wrong once, and everyone's going to talk about the terrible goal that they let in and caused all sorts of damage. So if you're trying to protect your organization against sophisticated cyber attacks, you need to think, what can we do today to really change the game and help protect our organization from getting infected with these type of attacks? There's lots of different sophistications out there, lots of different threat vectors and actors trying to cause damage. And the one that we really should be focusing on is the state-sponsored attacks coming out from various different organizations or various different countries. I won't necessarily mention all of them, but they're trying to cause damage. And that is the one that we should really be focusing on. Now, when an attacker tries to get into your organization, okay, they're looking after what they would consider the crown jewels. What is the major part that you can access within your organization that is going to be important to them? So for an attacker, it may be customer data. It may be they want to get into your financial systems and do a SWIFT transfer. Some of you may have heard around the recent examples of SWIFT attacks where millions of dollars were transferred over SWIFT without the banks even knowing about it. But the attacker's crown jewels may be different to an IT crown jewels. The IT department may be saying, actually, what's really important to me is my domain controller, or who's got access to my backup servers. And for a CEO, his crown jewels are probably information around his competitors, around an upcoming M&A. Okay, these are things which are really important to him. Okay, so when we talk about this whole concept of attack versus defense when it comes to cybersecurity, it's important to look at what's happened over the years. And this is the trend, or this particular point in time, everything changed. Okay, with the hyperconnectivity, with the advent of the iPhone, Amazon, etc. Up until that point, attack versus defense was pretty much in par. The attackers got ahead, the defenders came along, and we were doing pretty well. However, with hyperconnectivity, the attackers have now been given a significant advantage to be able to get in to your network and cause all sorts of damage. Okay? And as a result, the defenders are in a quandary. What do we do? How do we address this particular issue? So what do we do? What am I here to talk to you about today? Obviously, regulation can be put in place. We've all talked about the G word, GDPR, to help address these different concerns. But what we have to talk to you today is around the concept of deception. Okay, deception is a way of helping protect organizations against these different types of threats. So I'd like to give you an example of the Antwerp Diamond Center, which in 2003 was burgled. Okay, it was called the heist of the century for those who haven't heard about it. The burglars basically managed to get in and cause and probably get away with over $115 million worth of diamonds. Okay, and how did they do it? They used a very, very sophisticated procedure of speccing out what was going on in the particular diamond center. It took them a significant amount of time to go through and understand what was going on, to locate the building, to do the analysis about what is going on, going through the doors, bypassing the doors, all the relevant stuff that they needed to do to be able to break in, locate the diamonds, and get out. By the way, I don't know if many of you know the story, but the diamonds were never located. The main guy behind the actual diamonds, the way he was arrested was based upon DNA from a sandwich which he ate in the location that was actually found, interestingly enough, and he's actually out on parole with $150 million worth of diamonds never been found. Now, why am I mentioning this example is that this is an exact example of an advanced threat or advanced persistent attack that these burglars decided to take out on this diamond center in the exact same way that a potential cyber terrorist or cyber attacker could decide to infiltrate in any of your organizations or any of your customers' organizations. Now, what would we do today to be able to address that? Introduce a world of deception. Imagine, in this type of scenario, that everything was duplicated, and instead of going through one door, there would be 10 doors. Instead of there being one guard or 3 guards, it would be 25 guards. And what you could do, is to change the game so that the attacker doesn't know where they're going, they don't know what is real, and they don't know what is not. And that's really where I come in and talk about what my company does, and it's called Illusive Networks. Now, with deception, most of you have seen examples. You've all heard around the Trojan horse. Even the Allies used a form of deception when helping protect against the Germans. This is of you an example of a tank, which isn't a real one, that they used to make sure that they, that they beat the Germans in the Second World War. So these are real-life examples in war. But what have we done at Illusive is to take this idea and now transfer it to IT. So a little bit about the company. We're an Israeli company based in Tel Aviv, almost 100 people, and we focus on helping protect our customers using the concept of deception security. Hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars are spent today to help protect against what we call preventative techniques in cybersecurity. So the nasty bugs, the viruses, the phishing attacks, all that type of stuff that you're probably familiar with. What we do is focus on the really nasty stuff. The stuff that however much money you spend on prevention technologies is going to get into your network and is going to cause damage. Okay? And how does this work? So how does this work on a network? If we now take the example of the diamond story and we transfer it into your network, someone lands in a network on a machine, they access a particular part of that machine, pull credentials off that machine, and slowly move across to access a target to extract that type of data. So it could be, again, financial information, personal data, customer information, legal data, all type of stuff. And that, the further they move along, the higher the business risk. Now, what we try to do is we stop this from an attacker's perspective, and we change the game. So when a user accesses a machine, rather than just seeing one piece of data, there's thousands of pieces of data. And therefore, when an attacker now tries to access that data, if it isn't real, there's an alert, and straight away, the company knows that someone's in the organization. Now, most organizations, it takes about 90 days for them to identify a breach in their organization. What we can do is we can reduce that significantly, and that's the beauty of the product. It's very similar to what you would call, what most companies have heard around a honeypot type of technology. Where we differ is we take the honey out of the pot and we glaze the honey all over the network. So we can ensure that when an attacker accesses something that they shouldn't, you get a very, very high fidelity alert. Okay? These are a few examples. I've got 26 seconds, so I'll skip through this. But this is just showing you a few examples about We talked about AI. Everyone's mentioned AI. I wouldn't be right if I didn't mention AI sometime in my presentation. But we actually analyze the network to make sure that the deceptions we plant are exactly the same as the company's existing infrastructure. So the usernames, the share drives, all of that information looks exactly the same as a user, and that therefore an attacker can't tell the difference, can't tell if it's real or not. Okay? Lots of different types of deceptions. This is what the dashboard looks like. This is a network share of, a view of a network without our deceptions. And then when we introduce our deceptions, this is what the network looks like. The orange are essentially deceptions or pieces of information. So to an organization, which all of a sudden would normally have 5,000 machines, to an attacker, it looks like they've got 25,000 machines. Okay? Pretty much out of time, so I'll leave it there. If anyone's interested, please speak to me later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.